Hello.
Hey, what's up?
So we got the S90F and 95F on screen. They're just going to kind of be playing next to each other in the background while I go over some evaluation. Now you can see the glow on the 95. I have a studio light pointed up at the ceiling on the other side of the room.
That's not gonna be in everybody's home, And I think
Yeah,
that's
no.
the thing that people always kind of get twisted about the S95F.
Yeah, I see the ABL on the 90F kick in sometimes where like really bright stuff, especially in games, you just see it kind of the opposite of pumping. Whereas the 95, you don't see that at all anywhere. But the 85 would have that a little bit more.
There's a lot of hate against it. And I just think that, look, the majority of people that buy this TV, as long as you don't have lights hitting directly on the TV or you have light coming in at the TV, you probably won't have a problem with it. And I typically will just mainly recommend this room for anybody that has decent lighting in their room where it's not impacting the TV. If you have a light that you think, might be seen in the TV's reflection, then that'll be a problem because, it's still going to show glare from the lights. And I like Classy's light right here is a good example. Depends on the strength of the light, depends on where the light's placed, depends on how far the light is from the TV. There's so much that goes into it. But like when you see it in studio environments, like when we saw it with LG at that LG event, of course it looks horrible there. Of course it'll look horrible in a very lit room.
All right, I just changed the exposure. So that's about how bright like the actual wall and stuff and the ceiling and stuff in here is. So there is a decent amount of light in here. I'm just turning down the exposure for the TVs.
Right.
And it's like in this setting, I don't think it's an issue. I mean, I still would prefer not to really have it, but one benefit to it that I'm thinking about is I'm want to use the 55-inch as a monitor. So in that case, if I were to use the 90F and sit 4 feet from it, I see myself right back in the TV. Like the reflection is right there. With the 95F, I don't. I don't see anything. So if you aren't aware, this scene of Fantastic Beasts, Crimes of Grindelwald, these flames get up to 4,000 nits across pretty much the entire screen. So it's very high APL. Very bright. So this is with both of them calibrated, following UTF correctly.
Like you said, when you have them side by side, it makes you think, maybe I won't get a S90F after.
Yeah, I mean, again,
it depends
without
on the
95F there in person, the 90F still looks really good. Like I said, it was more accurate out of the box. The only thing is the EOTF, but it definitely is a much better step up for the 90 than last year. So last year with the 90D, I felt it was like a 50-50, kind of an upgrade, kind of a step back, depending how you looked at it from the 90C. This year, the 90F is just a clear, full, big step up, going from either 1,000 or 1,200 nits, depending how you look at it on the C and the D, up to 1,500 to 1,700 on the F. Like that's a big jump for a mid-range. I do not see the C5 being able to compete this time, and so it's going to be like the C3 again, and the C. So
the S90C C3, when we compared those two, it was like, what are we doing?
Yep.
So that's why last year shocked me. Last year shocked me big time.
Yeah, this is definitely like a leapfrog thing going on. So the first 95F that I had 2 times where with the Xbox connected, the screen went black for 2 seconds, it came right back. So that black screen dropout that the 95C was known for. Then I had 1 full signal loss, had to change input, switch back to get it back. Then switched, to a different cable. Didn't have any more problems with it. Haven't had anything with this one. So hopefully it's not really an issue and it was just a fluke on that one box.
Yeah, and the only dropouts I've had is through the splitter. I'm going to play the crap out of Expedition 33 with it directly connected, so I'll let you know if I have any dropouts then. But it seems like if there's a chain in the link, like if you're going through a splitter or if you're going through AVR, you may have more issues than if you weren't. But that's just, based on what I'm hearing and what I saw for myself, the splitter. How's the processing compared
so this
to
is
the D and the
overexposed. I mean, it depends how you look at it. Looking at the same low bitrate content that I've used, and like it still has the same attributes that I've seen on Samsung the last few years with macro blocking and whatnot. For motion, I haven't been able to sit and watch enough stuff to see if I experience any motion hiccups. So far, I haven't, but I haven't really put that to the test yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't ran into the same motion things that like a lot of people are saying are problems. So I don't know that the common user would run into too many motion issues.
I'm gonna show the clarity settings real quick, because this is where when you start turning noise reduction and stuff on, you're gonna see like the fog disappear here.
Yeah, this actually has like more of an effect this year than it did in the past.
You can see that pretty clearly, right?
Yeah,
you see that. Just going to standard and then the high.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is why I would never recommend using this at all.
Yeah, it's like smooth gradation, but like heavier scrubbing. And I don't know that it actually works with the gradients as well. But
no, it's just more of just like because of the way that it smooths it, it kind of blends the lines.
Mm-hmm.
But it's way too aggressive. Yeah, so this is another scene that I use on so like the C3, G3, the back wall would be one of the examples where you would just see like the pulsating, flickering, the posterization, just all kinds of issues. The G4 doesn't really have that. The G5 had it really, really bad at Dolby Vision before the recent update. It still had it quite a bit in HDR10. The update fixed the Dolby Vision side, apparently. Haven't seen it since, though, and like haven't really seen HDR10, but this is definitely a spot where you see like that back wall would just look really bad on it. But on here, there's really nothing to complain about. Big difference there.
Oh, the sun. What is your console set to right now?
This game doesn't do that. This is a 4,000 nit game, so that's why it's fair to use it. So it's because like a lot of games on PlayStation don't use the system level setting or have sliders. This is representative of that. Like unless I bring in another Xbox, I can't do different HIG, but this will have the same effect essentially.
This is a good way to do it. I mean, wow, that difference in the color luminance for those flames was kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's really hard to get this to come across the camera, but those flames have a lot more color detail for sure on the 95.
Oh, I saw it.
Oh, black screen.
There you go. Black screen. That happens. I'm telling you, man, it's the splitter. Mm-hmm. I'm going to test it more, but it's like...
But it only happens with the One Connect box.
Yes. No, that's correct. We both need to test this a little bit longer.
Yeah, like so I did see it twice.
Directly hooked up
the
to
first
the TV.
One. That's the first one I've seen on this one.
Yeah.
So at least it was actually on camera this time.
So last year I tested extensively on the S95D, like a ton. Like I played a ton on the S95D. I had 0 dropouts. On the S95C, I had
same thing.
a few, like quite a few dropouts actually, and a couple even happened on stream. So yeah, I mean,
yeah, I definitely would recommend getting a fiber cable going straight from the device, not through a receiver or anything else. Just going straight to the TV.
Yeah, fiber cable does definitely help. It feels like, because that's what Marcus had. He had an issue with dropouts. He got a fiber cable and no dropouts, no more, with his S95C. So this is an SDR game. This is a Oblivion remastered. I still need to play it. I've just watched the intro on it, but I've been playing Expedition 33. Shout out to that game. That game is incredible. I love that game. Favorite game right now. Might be one of the best games I've ever played in my life. So yeah, Expedition 33, highly recommend that game. Both of the games are not in HDR. Yeah.
This is with SDR, max brightness, contrast 38, so it's not clipping.
Yeah, the brightness difference in the SDR is nuts. Do you have them both maxed?
Yeah.
Just for like the camera? Okay.
Yeah, and they're both in original.
Just my opinion. This is my opinion. I don't care what anybody else says. It makes the game look more HDR than it does in SDR. So like if I'm looking at the S90F, I could tell it's an SDR game. If I'm looking at the S95F, you could trick me into thinking it's an HDR game. That's just how I feel about it. Like it just looks like it's more dynamic. There's no doubt about it in my eyes.
Me personally, I usually have lights on when I'm gaming, and I'll put SDR gaming to about 300 nits. Yeah, outer rings of the sun going into the sky, the little bit of ring.
Yeah.
I mean, it's on both of them the same. It's not like one's doing better than the other. Just
right.
I don't know. A lot of games lately have a lot of color banding, and it's like
For sure.
It just sucks. Like it's just something that bothers me.
The D's did a better job of cleaning.
Yeah, I
it
bet
up.
after the stream is done, if you come back and watch it, it'll probably you'd be able to see it better. But because it's a live stream, it's
there's no doubt the D's cleaned up color banding better in my eyes. I don't remember having an issue with color banding, and I see color banding more so on the Fs than I ever did. I don't know if that has anything to do with their extra edge enhancement, if they're going to do that in game mode as well, or if it's just something they tweaked with their I don't know what it is. It doesn't seem to be a panel issue because it's happening on both the 90F and the 95F.
all right. So this table right here with that candle, again, on it's a good for posterization issues or like the way. There's like basically no problem here at all with the Samsung as usual.
On LGs, they flicker. You see like a flicker
as it gets further out. Just the white square there alone, you can see the difference of what you're going to get out of the 95 versus the 90.
Just set them to max, might as well. Sorry, S90F, you're just going to clip.
Yeah, so that's where I'm saying, like, for gaming, like, I could not personally, like, go down. I don't think the price difference is that much. Obviously, there's a bigger price difference in the bigger sizes, but for 55 inch for, like, a monitor purpose or whatever.
That's how I feel right now, too. As you go up in size, there's a bigger argument to be made.
I don't know. There's a lot of games too that just like cap out at 2000. So like it's good to know you just set them like you're reaching that cap point for those games.
That is
obviously
true.
The next step would be 4, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, you could tell the S95F is just blazing, man. It's a light cannon. Like we used to say that for LCDs back in the day. We say that for OLEDs now. Really bright.
Yeah, and like the G5 is a bit brighter. But they did also apparently with an update they lowered the HJG so that it'll track better, which is a good thing. But I guess it's 2000 nits now. It's for game mode.
That's what I heard. Yeah, I can't wait to do that comparison. G5, S95F gaming. Oh, let's go. I just want to do that comparison so bad.
Yeah, they're both in game basic HDR with the color at 20, the color gamut switch to custom BT 2020, then back to normal.
Yep. So basically, he has it set to the same settings he shows in his settings video for the S95F. So check that out. And then after you're done checking that out, check out my video about the color because I show the same thing, but a little bit more, just different examples of it. Look at the difference. This is one thing I seen in person and kind of blew my mind. I was like, wow.
And those lamps in the front, definitely there's a big difference that the camera can't pick up.
So that's the thing.
Stuff like this though is like really making the 95 like
the high luminance fries.
It stresses it so much.
What are we doing?
It really makes it look way more three-dimensional, more than any real content would.
Exactly.
So that's, I don't know, like the content is nice to look at, but as far as like relative to real content, it's not.
For sure. It's fun to do. That's the best way I could explain it. It's fun to do. I don't know if it's a real world example. It just shows the capability of the panel, which is, what we're kind of nerding out about anyway. So I think that's why I like showing it. It can be a real example for gaming. You're right. Yeah.
Depending on the game, but yeah.
Yeah, depending on the game.
And depending if you use active or not. If you use active, then this gives you an idea. Because like if you use active on content like this that's already pushing the TV to its limit, or you use dynamic tone mapping on LG for stuff that's pushing the TV to the limit, then it's either not going to get brighter or it might even get dimmer to show detail more. Yeah,
and then on the same topic of games, when we're talking about HDR in games, not all the games have like great implementation of HDR, and sometimes could just feel like you just don't get anything from your highlights. So you're almost forced at times to use dynamic tone mapping, even though it's not like the greatest solution in the world. I mean, that's just, a lot of people are going to default to that because they don't want their games looking like they're not impactful.
I think if you're interested in one of these TVs, and you can afford the 95, the coding is off-putting, which again, it was and kind of is still for me too. Give it a shot anyway. You'll find for most rooms, it's not really a big deal, or it's no deal at all. Like, it's not going to have any negative effect at all. If you have a lamp that's going to be facing the screen or a window, then, you know,
sorry.
yeah, I'll get blinds, curtains, whatever. But yeah,
like, just turn it off, damn it. I don't get it.
So like with indirect lighting, I don't think it's an issue at all. If you have lamps or whatever behind the TV, I don't think it's an issue at all. I think that's where its biggest benefit is if the lights are to the side or behind the TV with a glossy display, you'll see yourself in it.
Maybe think about buying some blackout curtains if you really need to. Like, you can open them when you're not using your TV.
Yes, I can calibrate it with the coating off if you peel it off. Just be very careful about it.
I've seen some bad pictures. Examples.
Yeah, I've seen some pictures that would probably make some people think twice about it.
Which brand has the most three-dimensional processing? I think the three-dimensional look comes from the tone mapping more than anything else.
Whatever has more dynamic range.
Yeah, it's whatever is giving you the best HDR experience. The whole point of HDR is the dynamic range, like you're saying. I think the edge enhancement thing can add to that effect. It can, but I don't think that it's the culprit of it.
How much brightness do you lose? None. Technically I gained a little bit typically. So like, that's the other thing that I found odd is the 95F. Both of the ones that I've had, and from what I've heard from others with them, they are yellow leaning on the white point out of the box when they used to be more magenta on their white points. So that's a change. And so when it's yellow leaning and then you move it back in place, you might gain a few nits from that. But, especially on LG, that's more of a thing. You gain more brightness with the change in gain. The 90F, interestingly, is the most accurate out of the box TV I think that I've ever measured. It was basically straight D65 out of the box. SDR was like a 0.4 grayscale. Aside from the color luminance thing in HDR, that's, the 90F was actually surprisingly good out of the box. It was also the closest to like 2.4 gamma out of the box in the filmmaker mode on it than any other, Samsung that I had seen. Well, hang on. For this one, if you buy a TV later in the year, it is possible there could be changes in the production line, come off a different production line. Things can happen. I notice a lot on Sony's that the way they measure when they first come out is not how they measure after, say, 4 to 6 months. It does change. With the S90D, when they first came out, they were using the year 2 panels, and I was measuring 1200 nits. And then somewhere along the line, they switched over to the year 3 panel, and it was a lower tuned version of it, and those were 1000 nits, so there was a difference. Right. So processing is such a broad term. It's really not something that I like to talk about with just processing, because it's a low bit rate. Is it
it's a lot of
motion handling? Is it motion interpolation? Is it any number of different things? But I would say it's basically you probably have to have a last year Samsung model next to it to see if there's any difference. And if there is, it's very, very minor. And that's how they all are. Like, you'd have to have a G4 next to a G5 to see any minor difference there. You'd have to have the 8 Mark II next to an A95L to see any minor difference there. I think they're all pretty much fine at this point when it comes to anything that would relate to the processing, as long as there's no motion hiccups that the 95D had. And there is some very minor occasions for motion hiccups on the F, but it's pretty rare, mostly to do with 50 hertz. So
yeah, I didn't really have a problem with the processing last year. So it depends on what you call processing. It's definitely gotten sharper, by that edge enhancement technique that they're using. Like that you could tell when you have it next to the Sony Bravia 8, like I had it next to that. I definitely saw that it was more in line with that kind of look, where that wasn't the case with the S90D. It looked a little softer. So that is improved if you like that sort of thing. But typically, I don't think the processing was that bad to begin with. So I feel like Samsung gets a bad rep with processing that they don't quite deserve.
Yeah. The only thing for me with that, and it's not just on the Samsung, it's any of them that do it, what it can cause though sometimes, like this was really noticeable for me on Sony, because they, the XR is a little bit older. Let's say there's very like fine gravel in the scene, or very small little rocks, like lots of little sharp edges, and the camera's panning or moving. That over sharpening can cause some of those lines to have artifacts as it's moving. So like it'll look like a motion artifact, but it's mostly just from that over sharpening. That's something that I notice, but it's also rare, and you have to be looking for it and sitting close. Using the normal gamut, it improves the luminance. The luminance is an issue, whether it's before or after grayscale calibration. And then it does have a couple other issues though. So for one, like the magenta curves off into red. However, this right here is 35% stimulus. So this is much closer to what real content typically is going to be than what 50% would be, or even 30. 30 would be better as well. Here is 50% red, just to show the luminance for red. You can see pretty much the luminance numbers are all pretty much where they should be. Measurements in a typical window situation doesn't always equate to real content. So in actual real content, this is closer to the actual peak brightness. So even though in the window is measuring 2300, which would be this line up here, see we're actually sitting right about 21 to 22 on the S95F. And this is with lower APL content. So when you switch to higher APL content, where it doesn't have enough energy to maintain those peak highlights with the high APL, but you can see it'll drop down to, what was that line, 1600 in the worst case, or at least worst case for this test. But this is definitely far more stable than they were, a couple years ago.
I remember the same chart you showed me with the G2, like and it was like, it was crazy.
Like it could not hold anywhere near its peak. So that
chart is
tremendously.
I think this chart is so underrated. It shows so much.
Yeah, and this is where it's like when someone says, they want to get an LCD, mini LED because it's brighter. Aside from peak SDR brightness, it's not like a Bravia 9, Hisense U8 or UX or whatever. Like, sure, they can measure in a window a higher number, but in real content, they're not going to be brighter than the S95F or the G5 or even like a G4 and the S95D. They can keep up too. So that whole argument about brightness is gone.
Especially since it really just depends on the scene too. If it has to control its brightness to keep up with the local dimming algorithm that it's going with, then it could look even dimmer than the OLED in a lot of scenes. And people don't understand that part. It also has ABL just like an OLED, just not to the same extreme, but it still does have ABL. All the TVs have ABL.
Yep, because like let's say that the LCD you're talking about measures 3500 nits in a peak window, and it's a really bright scene. The problem is there's still going to be areas in the majority of scenes that are not going to be that bright, or they're going to be dark areas. So the local dimming is constantly trying to pull itself down to keep blooming in check, and it can only do so many of the zones at so many amounts of change per second. And so that's why you'll always see them not hitting their measured potential.